started. Thank you for joining us for this Beyond Idea grant information session. As the purpose of this meeting is for you all to have a better understanding of our programs at the South Dakota Community Foundation, eligibility for grant applicants, specifically our Beyond Idea grant program, which is new, and how you would apply for that grant using our online grant portal. So with those sort of housekeeping items and purpose, I'll hand it over to our president, Stephanie Judson. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you and to welcome so many of you. I'm so excited about all the great interest that is shown in our big grant program and our new announcement. The South Dakota Community Foundation will be celebrating our 35th anniversary here in November. 35 years of being able to partner with donors and partner with nonprofits to award over $200 million in that 35-year lifespan. We're also proud of the work that you do, and we're also proud of the partnership that we have with the Bush Foundation, a partnership which has spanned over 2 decades. As a statewide community foundation, we actively seek opportunities to bring funding to our nonprofits from South Dakota, and both in-state and out-of-state. So that partnership with the Bush Foundation has allowed us to do that, and many of you have been a part of that. You'll remember different partnerships that we've had, grant programs, a lot of them focusing around nonprofit capacity building. Many of you will remember the work that spanned over 2009 and 2010, where we hosted convenings and conducted surveys and awarded grants through intermediary partners to help build nonprofit capacity. And then, of course, over the past 8 years, we've partnered on delivering the Community Innovation Grant Program, which has allowed us to award over $3 million in the last 7.5 years. Now, we are honored to have been chosen as the Bush Foundation's community-based grant partner, which we have dubbed the big grants, Beyond Idea grants, big in ideas and big in size, allowing us to award over $1.2 million a year, over 3 times the amount that we were awarding over the previous community innovation grant cycle. So honored to have you here to learn about more, and here to tell you about more about this program, of course, is Ginger Neiman, our Senior Program Officer. Ginger will start her 25th year here at the Foundation in September and has been involved in our grant program in one way or another since nearly day one, serving as a program officer for approximately 15 years at that time. You all know what an expert she is in the field, and so with that, I will turn things over to Ginger.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you all for joining today. It has been an exciting time for us here at the Foundation, and so we're thrilled to be at this point in this process. And I would also like to introduce to you Crystal Ortbahn, and she was the young lady that was letting you into the meeting today. And Crystal is our grant program coordinator. She started with the Foundation almost a year ago, so September 1st. She started with us in 21, and so she's been assisting the grants team with rolling out this new grant program. And so I know you'll all welcome Crystal as well when you have the opportunity. So with that, I'm just going to get started here. And so we're going to start just briefly going over our grant program so there isn't any confusion once you decide to start applying for the big or the Beyond Idea Grants program. So as always, we have our South Dakota Fund Grant Program, our Nonprofit Savings Account Program, Community Savings Account Program, and what we're so excited to announce today is our Beyond Idea Grants Program. So who can apply to for these grants? So any nonprofit or charitable organization or units of government may apply for these grants. And if you aren't one of those organizations Perhaps you're a nonprofit, but you do not have your 501c3 status, what makes you ineligible to apply to a community foundation. We do offer fiscal sponsor, or will accept fiscal sponsors for these grant programs. And so what a fiscal sponsor is it's an organization that maybe you have a partnership with, and you ask them to apply on your behalf, and if a grant is awarded to you, the check will be issued to that fiscal sponsor. So we do accept those fiscal sponsors, so keep that in mind. We can also check to see if your organization is eligible, because we do need to make sure that your tax ID number is verified with the IRS, and those are typically 501c3 organizations, but there are a few that have another status. So give us a call if you're unsure of what that might look like. And of course, all projects must take place in South Dakota. So to just give you a little bit of brief background on our South Dakota Fund. So our South Dakota Fund has been around since the South Dakota Community Foundation was established. It is our unrestricted grant dollars that we get to award throughout the state. They are in the areas of culture and economic development, education, financial literacy, health, and human services. So with our South Dakota Fund, we do not have set rounds. It's an ongoing process. And so we're accepting those letter of inquiries all the time. It's when it works for you and your organization to submit that letter of inquiry. It can take up to 15 working days to hear back from us on your letter of inquiry if you're invited to submit a full application. Once you get the okay to submit a full application, you will have 60 days to do so. And then once your application is submitted, it can take the grant making committee up to another 90 days to make their decision. These grants range in size from $2,000 to $20,000, and they're program and project related grants that we're looking at to review in that grant program. With our South Dakota Fund, we do ask that you have other matching funds, and they can come in the form of other grants. Maybe you have some donors, maybe there's a fundraising activities that you have going on, and even in-kind donations will work for the matching funds for that program. So our next program I'm going to talk a little bit about is our nonprofit savings account program. And so these are challenge grants, and they're for nonprofit organizations to solicit gifts for a permanent endowed fund at the South Dakota Community Foundation. So just like our South Dakota Fund, we do not have set rounds. So you can submit an application anytime throughout the year. Successful applicants will receive $1 for every $4 raised, so a 1-to-4 match up to $20,000. So what happens there is if your organization applies and you're awarded one of these grants, your nonprofit organization must raise $80,000 in 2 years to receive $20,000, and that will start an endowed fund with the South Dakota Community Foundation. You will be able to receive 4.5% of the average fair market value every year for your fund. And it will be to help your organization grow. Of course, all of these grants need to go to an organization who is verified with the IRS. This is a great way for nonprofit organizations to have that money in perpetuity to help their nonprofit grow. Our community savings account grant program. So these are grants that are made to small community foundations all across the state of South Dakota. We currently have 80 of these community savings accounts in South Dakota, as you can see on the map here where they are all located. And if you go to our website and click on grants and then local grants, you can have, you can see this map, and it's very interactive. It can bring up different CSAs that you may be interested in. These CSAs each have their own local board. They make their own grant decisions with their own grant making guidelines and their own grant applications. All of those funds come through the South Dakota Community Foundation in order to make those grants for these organizations, but they do have the local control there. If you're interested in maybe starting a community savings account, reach out to one of our development directors. They're always happy to visit with you about what might work for you and your community. So now I'm going to talk about our Beyond Idea grants and how that kind of came to be. So in 2021, the Bush Foundation had announced a new initiative for South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, and the Native nations that they serve in each of the 3 states. They announced it would be $1.2 million each year for 6 years to each partner. And it was going to be created in collaboration with community partners. The South Dakota Community Foundation submitted that RFP, and earlier this year, it was announced that we were selected as that intermediary partner. And I wanted to let you know who the other intermediary partners are in North Dakota and Minnesota. So Strengthen ND is that organization in North Dakota. In Minnesota, Headwaters for Justice is that intermediary. And this year, and with this initiative, I should say, the Bush Foundation created another partner, and it is the Native Nations that is going to be serving each of our 3 states. Their organization is called the Good Relatives Collaborative. And those 4 organizations are across the 3 states, and you'll see those listed there. So it's Black Hills Community Loan Fund, Four Bands Community Fund, both out of South Dakota. And then in Minnesota, it's the Minnesota Indigenous Business Alliance. And then in North Dakota, the Sacred Pipe Resource Center. And so those 4 organizations are going to be working with all of our Native nations in the states. So we awarded the grant, and then we moved on to creating a team that would be comprised of 11 individuals across the state of South Dakota. This design team helped us create and develop the big program for South Dakota nonprofits. So I say big, but it is really the Beyond Idea Grant Program is the name that they all decided upon. And in the picture there, you'll also see that, some of our staff were there. And we also contracted with Sharon Shantos with Sage Consulting. She is going to be, or their group is going to be our evaluator throughout this process. So out of that meeting, we came up with some things that we wanted to pass on to all of you. And where we landed is that these are community-based problem-solving grants. They're intended to design, test, and spread ideas, and to inspire, equip, and connect leaders across our region to make our region better. These are going to be planning and/or implementation grants, and we really want to see that it has a community impact. And so you might be wondering, or maybe you're a little bit confused by our partnership with the Bush Foundation, and do their community innovation grants still exist? Absolutely they do. And if you are seeking a larger grant than what we can do, please reach out to the Bush Foundation directly for their community innovation grants that start at $20,000. And there's also a website link there for you if you would like to click on that as well and learn more about it. So our Beyond Idea grants, we are going to have 1 round in 2022. And so going forward, in 2023 and the next 5 years after that, we will have 2 rounds, but we're only going to have 1 round this year. And that's starting on August 15th. That's when the grant portal will open. It'll open at 8 o'clock in the morning. And on September 16th, it's going to close at 5 p.m. Mountain Time and 6 p.m. Central Time on September 16th. We're going to be making announcements of this first round by December 15th of this year. These grants range in size from $5,000 to $100,000. We will consider multi-year funding. And unlike our South Dakota Fund, we will not be required to have any match with these grants. So if you're awarded a Beyond Idea grant, you know, we really want to learn from you. So we'll be offering some calls with all of our grantees so that you can help us understand what it is that you have worked through and how the impact that your grant is going to make. And since this is a new program, and as always, we offer feedback to our grantees, but we also want to learn from that. And because it's a new program, we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to maybe update things or change things, maybe move some questions around, ask questions differently. So we really want to hear that feedback from you as we move forward with this grant program. These grants are for you. You are the nonprofits in our state doing this work, and we want to make sure that we're there for you to give you what you need to make an impact in our state. So how do you apply for these grants? You know, you can go out to our website. There you'll see all of our different grant programs. You'll see guidelines for each grant program. You'll see draft applications that you can review before you move forward. And all of our grants awarded will be listed there as well. And so you're probably asking yourself, this is a new grant program, and I'm used to applying to the South Dakota Fund. Can I apply to both? Well, absolutely you can, but let's keep in mind, they're 2 different programs. Our South Dakota Fund is more program and project related in the categories I talked about earlier. And our big or our Beyond Idea grants are going to be different. They're problem solving grants. And so you wouldn't want to apply to both of the programs for the same thing, or maybe the same phases or action steps or something like that. So just keep that in mind, but you are eligible to apply to both. The other thing that I wanted to mention here when we're talking about how to apply is, when can I apply again? I know that's your next question, right? You already received a grant, and now when can I apply again? You absolutely can. But what we want to do is make sure that you know, your project is completed, you have the evaluation report in, and all the dollars have been expended to this point. So all of those are things to keep in mind as you're getting ready to apply. So then we'll move on to, you know, how do you apply? So our online grant portal can be found on our website, and it's called eGrant. And once you get into eGrant, you need to create a login and password. So I have a couple of slides here with the assistance of Crystal. And so you'll see here that this is our eGrant login page. And at the top, it says click here to register. That is going to be for all new users. You do not need to register if you already have an account with us. You can just go ahead and log in. And if you're unsure of what that login is, let us know. We can help you find out what that is. Some organizations have more than one login. And if we can help minimize that a little bit for you, because you are able to see all of your applications, your letter of inquiries, your evaluations in eGrant. So let us know how we can help you there. Once you get into eGrant, the thing you want to know right off the bat is, where do I get to all of these grant programs? So they're listed under opportunities on the left-hand side of your screen. Right now, you're not seeing that the Beyond Idea grant program is listed. That's because it is not open yet, but it will be once August 15 rolls around. You will see it listed there. And that's where you'll want to click on that one. And then, of course, for the South Dakota Fund and the nonprofit savings accounts, you may click on either one of those grant programs. In the middle of the screen here, you see some information, some icons. Once you see those at the top of your screen, you're really going to be able to navigate through eGrant a little bit better. So once you are into the right grant program, and we selected the Beyond Idea grant program here, you're going to see that application. It's really a fillable form. And if you hover over any one of those areas to fill in, it will tell you what the character count is, and it will actually count down as you are filling in information. The one thing that I will really stress is that you need to save often. eGrant is designed to time out, and even though that you're typing and all of your information is there, but if you haven't actually clicked the save button, your information is not saved. So you're typing through your information, the phone rings, you take the phone call, you come back, you continue typing, you think everything is there, and when you go to submit, everything is gone. So I don't want that to happen to anybody. If you want to use another format to copy and paste into eGrant, you certainly can do that and then review it once you move on. And so that brings you to that top arrow. Follow that arrow up there, and you see the little home button. That's where all of your information, your drafts, it might be an application, it might be an evaluation. All of that is going to exist in your home under your drafts, so that you can go back and finish it when it works for you. I mentioned those icons and these buttons at the top of your screen there. So the arrows mentioning, that's where you go to edit. The other great thing about this is you can click on the view button and you can see a PDF of your full application that can be printed. You can look at any of the guidelines for which grant program that you're interested in. You'll see there's a blue box beside South Dakota Fund underneath application type. As you submit more and more applications, there'll be more listed underneath there. As soon as you put a checkbox next to one of those items, that's the item it's going to bring up above. So keep that in mind. So I've given you a lot of information to ponder, and we really didn't allow very much time during the presentation for questions. And I know Crystal has been monitoring that chat box. Now that we're completed, if you want to, raise your hand in the chat feature, we'll try to answer all of your questions that you have today. Thank you.
And Ginger, we have received some questions in the chat, so I will just read those out, and you can jump in and answer them. So first question from Carol: do churches qualify for the nonprofit fund grants?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do churches qualify?
Oh, do churches? Yes, churches can qualify. I would mention to you, usually what happens is that the church is the place, the entity, the location that many other things may be happening. So maybe not just its general church activities that are happening, but let's say there's a food pantry happening that is run out of the church, or backpack program or something like that. That is certainly something that would be eligible.
Next question was from Audrey. Will you be sharing the slide deck following the presentation? We are planning on sharing the recording of this webinar on our website in the near future. We'll like cut out the beginning of it, and the slides will be included in that record sharing. Next question was from Teresa. I would be interested to know if one entity could submit more than one application, that being a nonprofit with multiple programs in its wing, if that one nonprofit could apply for multiple grants in one cycle.
Thank you, Crystal. And yeah, that's a good question. And we do have that in our guidelines on our website. We do realize and understand that there are some large organizations that have defined divisions within their organization. And we will accept applications from a different division within that organization.
Another question was clarification on I think from Deidre about applying for both like the South Dakota Fund and also for the Beyond Idea Grant Program, and applying to both being seen as a negative. Can you just kind of repeat what you said earlier, Ginger?
Absolutely. And, you know, not as a negative. You know, like I had mentioned, they are two different grant programs, and you want to be aware of that. I think that's the biggest point I want to drive home. Our South Dakota Fund Grant Program is very much program and project related in those 6 categories of culture, education, economic development, human services, health, and financial literacy. So you want to be thinking about that. Now, when you move on to the bigger, the Beyond Idea Grant Program, those are going to be more community-based grant programs, problem-solving grants, and so be keeping that in mind.
Question from Tammy. If we have a project that would be done in phases, are we able to apply for each phase?
Sure. So what I mentioned a little bit earlier, you know, when can I apply again? Because I know you as nonprofits, you're always thinking ahead, right? And that's wonderful. I think it does make good sense that, okay, so this year we only have the 1 round, but let's think forward to 2023. We're going to have 2 rounds in 2023. Let's say your organization applies in that first round for an action step or a phase 1, and by the time round 2 rolls around, you have completed all your work. You have your evaluation in, the money's been spent, everything is completed. You may then apply in round 2 for the next phase. So we don't want to slow down your process. You know, you want to keep that momentum going. And so that is something that we're offering for you.
Joan shared a helpful reminder. When organizations apply an e-grant, it is, you know, you're signing in as the organization. So if you're an individual who is writing a grant on behalf of multiple organizations, each organization that you work with will have a different login. Is just a reminder that she shared, and is how that system operates. Is
good advice. Thank you.
From Alyssa, are there any specific funding priorities for this first year's opportunity for the Beyond Idea grant?
And just the first part of that, Crystal.
Are there any specific funding priorities?
Yeah, so you will find this in our guidelines, but really these big grants are intended to develop, test, and spread ideas. And we really want to help to inspire and equip leaders to lead change. So knowing that is absolutely what we're looking for. Community-based grant programs, and just these individuals leading change. We're looking for you to be working with your communities, stakeholders that are already involved maybe with this, or some that you might want to have involved.
Next question from Sonia was just explaining the letter of inquiry process, and I'll just say the letter of inquiry is specific to the South Dakota Fund grant program that we offer. There is not a letter of inquiry requirement for the Beyond Idea grant program. That is just specific to South Dakota Fund grants. Next question from Sandy was, do you share how applications are graded or what might make applications stronger?
Yeah, so yes, there will be a document that our reviewers will look at, a scoring matrix, if you will, and it will be based on some of the things I've already said, how you're developing, how you're testing, how you're spreading these ideas, how you're getting the community involved. It'll be looking at, you know, if it's on the leader side of things, you know, how are you going to inspire and equip these leaders? We are going to be looking at all of those things. We want to have you be thinking about your problem solving in a different way. Be thinking bigger about that idea that you may have. Maybe you don't know what that idea is yet. Maybe you do know what that idea is, but we want you to be really thinking broad, in very broad terms. How can I really make a difference in my community going forward with these dollars?
Question from Marie. Will the draft PDF with the questions include the number of characters allowed?
A copy of the draft application does not, but you can easily log into eGrant, and before you ever start, you know, to type one word, you can go in there and you can play around in eGrant and look at each one of those character fields before you ever submit anything. It is a working document. It's working, living document, and there's save buttons at the top and the bottom. And until you hit submit, you can play in there, you can type, you can move things around, whatever works best for you.
From Linda, will we get any heads up on the format of the grant and what might be questions might be included before August 15th? We do have a sample PDF of the application on our website currently under the Beyond Idea grant program, which is accessible today. So please look there. Joan is asking for clarification and just like still not sure how this differs from a regular grant program. What different things are you looking for?
Okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about what is the difference between the Beyond Idea grant program and the Community Innovation grant program. And so the difference is it the scope of what you are applying for and the dollar amount. So those of you that remember our Community Innovation grant programs, they were very process driven. We were looking for process work that your organization was going through to identify a need, come up with the solution to that problem, and then test it and implement it. This is a little bit different, and I should back up a little bit. It is an extension and an expansion of those grants, and so we absolutely want you to keep that in mind. But these are really community-based grants, and like I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, is that these grants are really hopeful that you can come up with the solution to your problem, and maybe you want to replicate that solution that you've come up with. It's really thinking broader and bigger about how you can problem solve your idea.
Question from Angela regarding getting the slide deck being available, and we can look into making the slide deck available after the presentation as well. Another question, if we have general questions after this webinar is over regarding the Beyond Idea grant program, we'll list it too, but Ginger and I are kind of lead contacts on that, and we would share between each other questions as they're coming in and what organization is wondering. So we would both know. Question from Gianna, would a 501c6 or C4 qualify?
I would tell you that very rarely, but it does happen, that a 4 or a 6 has a status with the IRS that is verifiable. If you have questions about that, as I mentioned, you can let us, give us a call, send us an email. It's something we can very easily check your tax ID number. But oftentimes it's because of the way that your organization is, I should say your nonprofit is organized. And that's the determination that the IRS has come up with that gives you that status. And so it does need to be charitable in manner, and that's where that comes from.
Another question, are upgrading city parks eligible? Can cities apply for grants?
Yeah, so that's kind of a two-prong. So can cities apply? Cities can apply. Oftentimes the role that they play in grant seeking is especially in rural communities. And in rural communities, there may be an a group that is organized, but they do not have their 501c3 status. And the city can very easily act as a fiscal sponsor for these situations. Where we don't want to see applications coming from a city is where the city has taxing authority and it's really a city project that they should be funding themselves. Whereas if we move on to a city park, if there is a group that's organized in the city park, they have a president, treasurer, secretary, they have board members and they meet on an annual basis or, quite frequently. I think the city could be that fiscal sponsor and play that role.
Question, how many awards will be given?
Well, that's a great question. And we may not know that until the time comes. So as I had mentioned, the grants are going to range from $5,000 to $100,000. And we have $1.2 million a year to award out to nonprofits. So it's going to depend on what we're seeing as far as applications coming in. We're happy to award, anywhere between that 5,000 and 100,000, but that's really going to determine what we can award in 1 year.
Another question, if there is a fiscal sponsor, do they need to be the submitters of the grant?
So they can have a grant writer, or they can be the organization submitting the grant. Just knowing all questions that we have about this grant application, we are going to be contacting the individual who's the contact on these applications. So it's going to be the contact individual's phone number and email. That's who we're going to be reaching out to. And if you want that to be you as a fiscal sponsor, that's fine. But if you don't know anything about it, except you're going to be doing that financial work for them on the other end, then it probably should come from the nonprofit.
So a question regarding community, does it have to be just one community you are impacting through this, or will it impact more than one community? Just kind of a question around the broadness of the term community.
Sure, and that, community can mean a lot of things. It can be a geographical area. It could be a learning community. It could be a health community. It might be the entire state of South Dakota is the community that you're trying to address. So you defined what community looks like for you.
And so a question just clarifying our grant programs is a question on here, Ginger, that I'll just respond to. Our South Dakota Fund does have a rolling application deadline where there's no deadline. The Beyond Idea grant program will have an application opening time of August 15th, and it will close September 16th at 6 p.m. Central Time. That is different from our South Dakota Fund. So Beyond Idea grant does have a deadline. South Dakota Fund does not in the same way. Does the application allow applicant to include graphics to clarify our process through a logic model? Or how would a grant applicant submit additional supplemental materials to the application?
Right, so our online grant portal allows us to have you upload a budget, but we have not made any areas on the application that are also allowing for uploaded documents. If we find that is something that a lot of you are wanting, it might be something that we could add in the future. For this first round, that does not exist, and we don't have that opportunity. The one thing that we like to keep for our reviewers, so that they are being able to review everything the same, everybody's submitting the same information, and that is why it doesn't exist now, but it's not to say it can't exist in the future.
Have a few more questions in here regarding how many awards will be given, and specifically around 1.2 million being awarded in 2022.
Yeah, so all of you know there will only be one round in 2022, and so going forward in 2023 with 2 rounds, if we have leftover funds, those we are allowed by the Bush Foundation to expand those dollars into 23, and so in 23 there might be a larger pool. It just depends on how round 1 in 2022 looks, and so we'll be sure to convey that information once we get rolling in 23, how that might look.
A question regarding kind of specific projects. Can a college or learning center use this to become accredited? That's a question.
No, I don't believe so.
Then the next question, is there a possibility to have a grant be submitted, but not for the fully requested funding amount? For example, you like the idea and project, but need to scale it down?
Sure. So if I'm understanding correctly, let's say you have a project that you think is going to be around $50,000. That's the amount that you apply for. And the review team decides maybe they aren't quite there yet at a 50,000. I do believe that they have the opportunity to do so, is scale that down. But we also want to be able to provide the dollars that you need to get the work completed.
Can you talk about, Ginger, using the big grant for nonprofit operations to implement or test an idea, what that might look like?
Yes, so operation costs can be put into your budget. If that's all the expenses that you have, then that is what the budget will show. But we are allowing you to use these dollars for operational expenses.
If our organization has follow-up questions, you'd reach out to myself or Ginger after this is over. I'm not sure if Ginger can put the final slide up again that shares our contact us with questions. And we would share between who's sending those inquiries, and the last, if does a nonprofit need a minimum of operating years to apply for one of these grants, Ginger? Like, how many years of operation? Is there a minimum?
We do not have a minimum at this point. No, any organization may apply as long as they are a verified 501c3.
And I believe that finishes questions from the chat. So it looks like Murray has raised his hand for a live question. So I will ask you to unmute and ask your question.
Hello, thank you for the information. This is great, exciting stuff happening. I'm with United Way of the Black Hills, and I just wanted some clarification on a couple of the things. You said that different projects within a nonprofit could apply for the funding. Like for example, here at United Way, we have a mental health initiative. We also have a literacy initiative. So could each of those programs, with each having their own director, apply for this grant?
So, Murray, not seeing your division, how it's divided, how your organization is divided, not having that in front of me, but thinking that you are all under the same umbrella of United Way. You don't have defined divisions such as, I want to use the state of South Dakota. So underneath the state of South Dakota, you have many different divisions, right? And so my understanding is that United Way would not be, because you are the United Way. But you know, we can talk offline too if I'm not understanding how your organization is structured. But different initiatives within one organization, even though you have different directors, doesn't necessarily qualify for you to apply for all of those initiatives within one nonprofit organization.
Okay, so we would most likely want to apply as just as United Way of the Black Hills, seeking funding for these specific things.
Right, exactly.
Okay. I think that, okay.
And
Cool.
like I said, if you have further questions about that, we can discuss offline as well.
Okay, perfect. I might do that.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Somebody asked me to show the contact slide again, so I'm going to do that real quickly here.
And I haven't seen additional questions come through on the chat, but Peter Smith has risen his hand, so I will unmute you, Peter, or ask you to unmute.
Hello, this is Peter Smith from the Rural Office of Community Services. It kind of piggybacks on what the gentleman said from the United Way. We have divisions within Rural Office of Community Services. We have 4 of them, but they're all under the one umbrella. But the question I have is, we also have a sister nonprofit that's under our board and everything, but it is its separate own 501c3. It's a component of ROCS, but it's a separate 501c3. Would that be the kind of division you're looking for, Ginger?
That would be an eligible definition of organizations that could both apply. You both have your own tax ID number, so
Yes.
you both would, be able to apply under those.
I just know you'll
ID
see.
numbers.
The reason I asked that is you'll see both my name and any board information would be from the same people, but within the 2 different divisions. That's why. Okay.
Yes, I understand.
Thank you so much.
Mhm. Well, I know this was a lot of information thrown at you today. It might be new for some of you. Some of you may have been partners of ours in the past, and kind of questions that are going to arise when we're done today. And so I really do encourage you to reach out to Crystal or myself with any questions. This webinar will be found on our website. The other thing that I want to make you all aware of is we will be going across the state doing what we call some good grants guidance sessions. We'll be in a community near you, hopefully within the next couple of years here, to get out and visit with folks one-on-one in person. So, and I would also offer, if there's any nonprofit groups that would like us to come and visit either via Zoom or in person, where you have access to a lot of different nonprofits that would like to hear our message, reach out to us. We're happy to get you on our calendar. But thank you all for coming today. We appreciate it. We are here for you. You are the nonprofits that we want to get the money in the hands of, so that you can continue to do the great work that you all are doing to make South Dakota stronger. So thank you for all the work that you all do, and let us know how we can assist you. Thank you.